ZombieTech. Welcome to ZombieTech, a forum for engineers, scientists, and inventors to ponder on the technologies needed to survive the inevitable zombie apocalypse.
She's Addie.
He's Whisker.
And who have we got this week?
We have Dr. Cranquis of Tumblr notoriety, who is a urgent care doctor and pretty much just provides a lot of hilarious stories about his day-to-day life on Tumblr, as well as helps to answer some of the medical questions that people have for him.
Now, from what little exposure I've had to this idea for this interview, there's something here about the fact that Dr. Cranquis is actually a very unknown entity in the universe. Nobody knows who he really is. And to even do this interview, we had to set up some special technology here to disguise his voice.
It's true. It's true. Any particular reason for that fear, Dr. Cranquis?
Well, as you can see. Oh wait, no, that's right. You're gonna be disguising it on your end. I keep forgetting. Well, as you can imagine, being a doctor writing on the internet, that's not necessarily new, but I think a large part of what my blog does is to actually venture into the realm of giving people advice on direct medical questions. Even though I couch it in terms of, of course, if you really have a medical problem, you need to be seeing your real life doctor, because how do you know I'm not just some homeless guy with a, really big vocabulary and an internet access?
True.
But I guess the venturing of doctors into the social networking atmosphere is still so new that I really don't know all the legal ramifications of what I'm doing. I've had a chance to kind of somewhat feel out some of it with a couple of friends of mine who are more legal sides of things and whatever, without, again, giving myself away. Nobody that I work with knows that I do this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I guess I've kind of painted myself into a slightly paranoid corner.
I guess for the legal ramifications, though, I mean, because it's not completely understood. I mean, that's a valid reason, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I've had one person that I do communicate with, not by voice actually, just again my paranoia, but by email or Tumblr, has been Jay Parkinson, who's really on the forefront of advances in medicine and doctors getting involved on a social networking level. And he's come right out and said he thinks that I have nothing to worry about, that I should just do my thing and be at the forefront with my real name, blah blah blah. At the same time, I mean, I can easily imagine somebody at my work going, "What? You wrote about that patient?" I mean, I know nobody can identify who they are because they don't know where you work or what day they came in or blah blah blah. But oh my God, I can't believe you're doing this.
HIPAA violation, blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Even though everything that I put on my blog is de-identified, so I would challenge anybody to be able to figure it out. Unless that particular patient happened to then stumble onto the thing and go, "Boy, that sounds an awful lot like what I said," which, given the large percentage of people that I see and the IQ they have, I don't think they'd be able to put it together.
So speaking of IQ, then, so what started this blog for you?
Well, one second here. Isn't there a legal precedent in all of this? I mean, I remember reading something that was from a doctor in, I think it was probably the late 60s, early 70s, and he had been working at a psychiatric facility for, quote, troubled teens. And this is, of course, back when that meant that if a girl was moody, they could, like, lobotomize her and crap. And he just changed.
I tell you.
Yeah, he just changed their names and pretty much told the stories and everything straight up, other than the name.
And that was okay?
Yeah,
well, as far as I know. I mean, I read the book, so...
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I mean, you get these doctors writing their memoirs. They tell you what year they were practicing. They tell you what facility they were practicing in. And, and around Christmas time of my intern year, this guy comes in with blah, blah, blah. There's enough data there that you could put it together if you really sat down and hunted it up.
Right.
That being said, the medical community is incredibly paranoid about the internet.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so, I could write a story that would have the exact same level of detail or lack thereof of anything you'd find published in a medical journal, say JAMA. And I bet you somebody would complain about it purely because of the fact that it's online and therefore somehow is more of an invasion of privacy.
Hmm.
So that being said, I mean, my real reason to keep it anonymous started off as, I just didn't really know what I was getting into, and I was really just starting the blog as a way to complain about my everyday life.
Right.
Hence the name of the blog, which was Dr. Cranquis Mumbled Gripes. It's gone way past that now, but it was just a place where I would go, what really bugs the heck out of me? I'm going to write about this. And so I started it just under a pseudonym that came to me in the shower one day.
Sure.
And from there, now I'm hanging on to it for dear life because I still don't know exactly what all I'm getting into. And the more popular this gets, the more that little fear in the back of my head goes, one of these days somebody's going to walk up to me and say, hey, does the name Cranky mean anything to you? I say, oh, no, I have no idea who you're talking about.
So what kind of readership are we talking about here?
Well, I still haven't figured out a reliable way to tell how many of any given number of Tumblr followers are bots versus humans. But the number is up to 8,694 as of right now.
Congratulations.
And that's Tumblr followers. My Google Analytics says that I'm getting probably about 1,000 hits a day, which is very much more. It's about 999 more than I expected to be getting when I started this blog.
Yeah.
So it's all gravy.
That's great. Congratulations.
Thank
Congratulations.
you. I mean, it's the kind of thing that I think you don't expect to have happen because it's just your job.
Yeah.
And yet, I love the feedback I get from people who are, pre-med, high school, and medical school stages of life going, this inspires me. This is what keeps me going. I'm like, really, it inspires you to hear me complaining about how much I hate my job some days? But okay, hey, whatever I can do to help.
Right. Right. And this has been going on for a year and a half?
I think, yeah, I want
Okay.
to say July or August of 2010.
10. Okay.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
then, and
yeah.
how long have you been a doctor?
I'm going on 5 years
Awesome.
out of training.
Okay. Okay. Oh, which means that you've been a
Yeah,
doctor for like forever and a half. And
yeah. I mean, you get the MD after medical school, but to be really on your own, with nobody, co-signing you off or anything, yeah, 5 years.
so, how long from medical school to being on your own?
After medical school, it all depends on what route you want to go, what
Right.
specialty you want to pursue. But I took the 3 and out route, which is going as quickly as possible and getting out of there. So
Sure.
I did family medicine, and people who do family medicine, general pediatrics, general internal medicine, they can get out in 3 years after medical school.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I mean, I have friends who are still, I don't even know. I can't even tell between like the interns and the fellows and the residents and all that, but, because in our facility, residents are actually pretty high
Oh yeah,
up the food
sure,
chain.
sure, sure.
Whereas in other places, they're still like the little peon. So, it's all very confusing.
It is. It's confusing even when you're in it yourself.
Sure.
But yeah, and partly because there is so many different specialties happening at one time. And I mean, I have people who graduated from medical school with me who are just finishing their training now, like their
Gosh.
residency training,
Gosh.
And,
That's
they
horrible.
they Facebook me, I hate the fact that you actually have your own job now. But, hey, they're going to be,
Wow.
making a lot more money than I
Sure.
will, let's put it that way.
Sure. So you work at an urgent care clinic. Can you tell me what that is? Because we don't actually have any around here, and also what the day of a life of a doctor at your clinic is.
Well, an urgent care is a relatively new beast that has come onto the medical scene probably in the last, I would guess, 15 to 20 years at the most.
Okay.
Kind of born out of the need for some place that the ERs could send people that, didn't actually have an E in their reason for showing up to the R. And so in urgent care, at least the one that I work in, for example, is a place where if you have someone that needs to see a doctor the same day, and you have a primary doctor and they can't fit you in, then they'll send you to us. Or if you don't have a primary doctor, you're passing through, or you're one of that large percentage of people who just doesn't feel that they need to have a doctor until, oh yeah, it turns out you needed one, then they'll come to us. But being in urgent care, and in my case, a freestanding urgent care that's not actually, connected physically to a hospital, we don't get any, ambulance transports. We don't handle, we can have a list of things that we can't do. An emergency room can't turn anybody away. We can't.
Right. So usually urgent care clinics would be attached to a hospital or like an ER?
No, so you'll find some that aren't.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a much, just like emergency rooms, you'll have emergency rooms that are, tertiary level versus primary level. The ones that can handle everything, including multiple gunshots to the heart, versus the ones that, oh, you've got an appendix problem, let's send you somewhere else.
Right.
There's variety among urgent cares also.
Wow. The urgent cares can actually handle gunshots?
No. ERs.
Oh,
can.
ERs. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
just
the
making
ERs,
sure.
you've got levels of ERs that can handle all the way up to everything. Those are the ones that can be attached to the, major hospitals. They're usually attached to universities. They've got all the experimental stuff happening there.
Right.
And then, the further out you get away from the major cities, the less critical stuff the ER is going to be willing to handle.
Sure. So since yours is freestanding, how many people percentage-wise, I guess, actually need the ER versus primary care? Because do people just end up walking in and saying, hey, I got something wrong?
Yeah. I guess that percentage number would depend on who you were asking, the doctor or the patient. I'd say I have a conversation at least once a week with somebody where along the lines of, well, I really think you need to go to the emergency room. No. I just need some of this medicine and I'll be fine.
OxyContin.
And
please.
I have a theory, which is that the reason that people with chest pain persist on going to an urgent care, even though an urgent care is not equipped to do anything for you other than maybe do an EKG and say, well, an EKG looks okay, but that doesn't rule out your chest pain as being cardiac.
Right.
The reason those people are still coming into the urgent care is because in their mind, I went to the urgent care, therefore my pain is only urgent. It's not emergent. If I went to the emergency room, I'd be admitting there was a big emergency here. But by going to the urgent care, I have triaged myself into a less urgent category.
Gosh.
And then they're shocked when we tell them they still have to go to the ER.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Huh.
But you've read my blog for a while.
Yeah.
You've seen me quote it over and over again. Denial is not just a river in Egypt.
Right.
Hey, that's the kind of laughter I aim for on my blog. If you haven't gathered that by now, then you need to go back and do some homework.
So, can you...
So, I as the non-medical person here, I'm trying to follow along with all the the secret language that y'all have. Basically, what you're saying is, if I get bit by a zombie, I should go to the ER. Obviously, the ER is probably going to be full of zombies by now, but I should go to the ER and not an urgent care facility.
I'd say it depends on how recently the injury occurred. I'm going to extrapolate from we have protocols in our urgent care for the nurses to have when somebody comes up to the front saying, I had a car accident, or I had a blah blah blah, or I'm pregnant and I'm having stomach pain. And so I think our zombie protocol at the urgent care would be, okay, how long ago did the bite occur? Was there actual breakage of skin? Did you lose any body parts? And if the person is saying, well, the bite occurred 3, 4, 5, 6 days ago, we'd probably be able to just go ahead and handle it at the urgent care. Chances are we're just dealing with secondary infection. Maybe you have to clean out the wound again or something.
And shoot you.
If they're up at the front saying, I've been bitten the last 24 hours, brain, we're going to go ahead and refer them up to ER.
You're not going to take care of the situation at that point in time.
I'm just going to go ahead.
I'd refer them to Dr. Remington.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're going to start acute lead therapy.
So then how does the Hippocratic Oath relate to zombies?
Boy, it's been a while since I've had to recite that whole thing.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I believe it only refers to things like protecting their privacy, not getting involved sexually, and making sure that you also respect the people who taught you. But I don't think any of those would really apply to zombies.
So don't have sex with the zombies.
So, right. I mean, my
Right.
Hippocratic Oath forbids me from taking advantage sexually of a zombie, no matter how attractive he or she might be.
This show has taken a strange turn.
Wow. I wonder, because there's this one movie, I think it's a movie, where the zombies that came back were actually quite pleasant. They were peace-loving zombies, and they didn't eat humans, and they looked normal. They didn't have flesh dripping off of them.
Huh. Uh-huh.
And, so the society essentially said, well, we can't kill them, so we'll just reinstitute them at their jobs. So when you get zombies, because we of course have the George Romero version of the
Yeah.
shuffling zombie and whatever.
Right.
But what if the zombies come back and they are just like us, except a little slower? So like a lot of the patients that come through.
I was just going to say, I don't see how your hypothetical varies from my reality.
Burn!
You hear that, humanity?
Yes. I look down my nose at you. There are people every day. I just don't know how they are functioning. I don't understand how they manage to get themselves dressed and find their way to the urgent care.
You heard it from Dr. Cranquis. Zombies are among us.
Yeah. I go ahead and operate under that assumption. We're infiltrated.
Huh.
Oh, we sure are.
All right, folks, keep on the lookout. So, do people in certain age ranges tend to have certain bad habits?
Oh, this is a fun shift in the conversation. Yeah, sure. I harp quite a bit about preventive medicine from a lifestyle viewpoint on my blog. I think a lot of, not all of, but a lot of medical problems could be either prevented or ameliorated, I like that word, by relatively simple in concept, although not simple in practice, lifestyle changes. And I think, I see teenagers, a lot of teenagers whose, driving goal is the very zombie mentality of do what everybody else around me is doing. And so in the teenage group, we'll get a lot of people with the, in the summertime, I get all the people with the sunburns because they decided baby oil was the way to go for the suntan.
Cook yourself. Good idea.
Yes, yeah. Smells like bacon.
Ouch.
There's I don't know. I can't even narrow it down. There's so many examples. The general issue I think is that there is a lot of knowledge out there how to make better decisions, but it just is too troublesome for a lot of people to implement it. They don't see the value to it until after they've already suffered the consequences.
And they wonder why no one told them before.
Right. Well, then that brings us into the whole discussion about the culture of victimization and blame. And I mean, at that point, all that's left for them is to either blame somebody else or demand an instant cure for something that doesn't happen. So.
I have 600 pounds on my body.
How did
Quickly.
this happen to me?
I've been eating nothing but salads. Nothing.
Oh, yeah. All those pizza vegetables got him.
Oh my gosh. Did you hear about that? Anyway. we could go on and on, but yeah.
I just
Wow.
saw a picture online today. I thought it was hilarious of a billboard or one of those little signboards in front of a Pizza Hut that says "Ooh, now selling vegetables."
Seriously?
Yeah, I think it's great. They're jumping
Oh
on the
my gosh.
we now deliver vegetables 30 minutes or less.
Oh my gosh. That's horrid.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Horrid. Huh. So, a lot of this, the reason I got to know you, quote unquote, got to know you was through this blog.
Wait, you
and
know
and
me?
Can
Yeah.
anyone really know Dr. Cranky?
The conversation ends now.
um internet medicine. We have a lot of, in the inpatient side, we do or we teach people about telepresence or telemedicine, I guess. So for people with permanent pacemakers, for instance, in order to have someone check it, they don't have to actually go in. They can put a phone up to their permanent pacemaker and get it reprogrammed that way. So we
As
have.
an engineer, that sounds like a really, 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 really stupid idea.
Well, yeah, I understand, but that's how they do it. Even in the hospital, I mean, to a certain degree, they can just program. You just stick the little anyway.
Yeah, but that's a controlled RF space, When you got literally a little ham radio sitting there a couple of inches away from a pacemaker. Any resonant metallic bits inside that pacemaker could pick up little chirps and squeals coming out of that cell phone's real antenna. It's just a bad idea.
I'm not defending or whatever, just saying that is how it is. So, do you see, like, what do you see the future of internet medicine being, if any, really?
Well, I think no. There's definitely a future to internet medicine. I mean, at a very basic level, doctors have to use the internet more because that's where the patients are.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the patients want.
Mm-hmm.
If I had the money to start my own internet practice, and just basically say, okay, listen, for a $30 fee, you get whatever 10 minutes, 15 minutes of my time to do a video call, a video conference with you, or instant message, or whatever the heck you want, and you get my advice directly one-on-one, all HIPAA protected, generate a chart for you. I can print out prescriptions to your pharmacy. I can blah, blah, blah.
That'd be impressive.
Man, I'm telling you, it would take off. And there are websites that are starting to do that. In fact, I was just looking at one tonight that is doing that for very limited diagnosis, kind of like what you'll get at like a Walgreens, what do they call them, quick cares or ready cares or whatever. If you have symptoms that you think might be a bladder infection or a sore throat or a cough, then we can handle you. And you fill out a 70-question form on the website, and then a licensed nurse practitioner looks it over and gives you a treatment plan. And if you need a prescription, they send it in somewhere for you. They don't even see you. They're not even using video cameras.
Right. Wow.
So there's a lot of room for medicine to expand into using internet and technology in general. And medicine's always been, I think, at the forefront of a lot of technology, because
It has to be.
few things drive the need for an invention, like the need to fix a medical problem, a health issue.
Pornography. Yeah.
Well, that too.
They're the main leaders, but yeah, right behind them, using that technology is medicine. Yeah.
Right behind them. I'm not going to touch that analogy at all, actually. Yeah, I think there is a lot of potential. But it's going to be such a slow journey, because what you've got is the massive inertia of the medical society, the medical establishment, which is afraid of anything new.
Now, do you notice, because you have essentially as many, well, not as many patients, but you have quite a few patients online, so to speak, as you do off.
I will interrupt you there.
Yeah.
And say, okay,
It's like
okay,
ixnay. No,
not
no.
patients.
Not patients. I have people who happen to be asking me a question as opposed to my competition, Dr. Google.
Okay, so people who ask you questions. You have people who ask you questions as you do. Okay, so do you find them being more open to you because of the internet? because things are anonymous, because they don't have to face you. Because, like, I've seen some pretty personal things being posted
Hell
from
yes.
people, about their nether regions that, it's like, do people talk like that to you in real life as well? I mean, is there a certain degree of freedom with the internet?
Um, I I don't think I've had any question on my website that has been any more personal or shocking than things that I've had said to me in person. That being said, I think the proportion on the website is greater. I think that yes, there is that freedom. The same reason that we have trolls on the internet.
Right.
Anonymity frees your mind. It frees you from those social restraints.
Right.
So yeah, you can. It cuts both ways. You can say all these things to me without any fear that your family members are going to know, or that the person that you're asking is going to know who you are, what you look like, or is going to have any real trace back to you. At
Right.
the same time, with the way that I have things set up, again, you don't really know who I am either.
Mm-hmm.
So
True.
that's the slight risk you have to take. I mean, I
True.
think by this point it'd be pretty hard for me to claim, oh, haha, just kidding, guys, I'm not really a doctor at all. I I think it's kind of leaked through that there is actually an MD somewhere after my name.
Right.
But I think anonymity is powerful, and I hope that doctors have done enough of a job of protecting our reputation for maintaining privacy that patients still are willing to open up to us. But let's be real.
Hmm.
You know, this is the reason why women walk around with massive fungating masses coming out of their breasts or out of their vaginas for months or years before seeing somebody about it, because they don't want a doctor to know.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to share that with another real live human being.
Mm-hmm. That is slightly disturbing, but absolutely true.
Mhm.
So, and you're talking. Excuse me. You were mentioning something about hoping that people could be more open with their doctors. I know that recently you went to a conference about patient-doctor communication, and how there was something about like doctors. There's an average amount of time that passed before doctors would interrupt their patients.
Mhm.
Was it 12 seconds?
Yeah, it
I
ranged from
think.
in the studies that they had done. These were doctors who were instructed to not interrupt the patient. The, the average physician would still jump in anywhere between 14 to 25 seconds into the patient's initial opening statement.
Jeez.
Um, which, guilty. I mean, I do it too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're in the exam room. You know you have at least 5 other patients waiting to see you, and you can still hear the printer going off at the front desk, meaning more are checking in.
Right.
It's very hard to just sit on your hands and go, okay, the studies have shown that if you don't say anything, the patient will still be done talking within 60 to 180 seconds. So just shut up and you'll get all the information you want. It's almost impossible. It's superhuman not to just go, yes, yes, that's all very well and good. Just answer these questions, please.
So, so what do you do then? I mean, like, do most of the like, so what the times that you have waited has that been worth it, or have you just found that actually I just have these questions and answering these questions just
Well,
makes it
one thing that does come with experience is learning learning to pick up the signs quickly as to which patients it might be worth it and which ones ain't no way it's going to be worth it. You know,
right?
um, there's certain, and I'll admit, I mean, this is basically profiling. This is like the cop pulling over the black guy.
Mm-hmm.
This is me going, oh, you came wearing a cat sweater today, didn't you? I ain't letting you say more than about 3 words before I jump in. Uh, or I see, I've seen your chart before I go in the room, and I see that you've had
Right.
15 doctor visits in the past 3 months. Chances are you've got some anxiety stuff going on, or there's something,
Sure.
up above the neckline that is going to be, affecting your ability to give me clear answers to anything. So I'm going to pull the reins in. I'm going to ask you close-ended questions. I'm going to try to keep things focused.
Sure.
But I've been wrong, and I've had patients tell me, wait, I need to finish talking. There have been times where I have benefited from waiting that little extra piece of time, and the patient adds in something that I wouldn't have even thought to ask.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
And I'm sure
Um,
there's like those times where the patient bites your arm and then chases the nurses around. It's
Zombie
but
style.
and then again, that's profiling though. What you're doing there, is you're just making assumptions based on the fact that you can see their internal organs, that they're not going to want to pay attention to the basic societal mores. And I think that most of the time you'd be correct, and yet there's times where you might not. I mean, the guy might just have a visible liver, and that's just the way he is. Why
Oh
are you judging him?
God.
support diversity, unless it's trying to eat your brain.
Now, have you been in any like sort of emergency situation, as a doctor? Like, have you had to do mass triage or casualty triage or anything like that?
I haven't, and
Okay.
we've come close a couple times. I do live in a part of the country where winters can be kind of nasty sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and it's spelled out in the employee handbook that if a whatever category level blizzard or weather disaster is called out, that you are expected to respond if it's safe for you to respond. And then a couple of years ago during the what was it, 2009, the H1N1
Mm-hmm.
influenza
Yep.
season, there was serious talk. It never got to that point, but there was serious talk of actually turning our outpatient building into an overflow for the hospital 10 miles
Oh
away.
wow. Wow.
Which I am sure glad that never happened, because I don't know what the heck we would have done for them.
Yeah.
But there are protocols that are in place and that get discussed every once in a while. If there was a three school bus pileup, okay, we would take we would triage them into us until we could get them sent off to where they need to go.
Right.
And I've had classmates and colleagues who've been involved in these kinds of situations. Towns hit by a tornado or a hurricane or things like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I'm sure it is the number one test of your ability as a doctor and a human being to just be able to handle all that kind of a stress.
Right.
A zombie apocalypse would be right up there,
Yeah.
with I think it would just edge out the hysteria that we experienced during the swine flu epidemic.
I would hope so. I would hope that it was a little more hardcore.
And thinking about it, I think that if you actually needed some sort of more minor medical care in that sort of a situation, it's probably a lot better to go to an urgent care clinic than try to get into an ER, because they're going to
Oh
be
my
swamped.
gosh.
So just
Right,
as a respectable citizen, you should
right.
probably look for something a little more appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, there is the trickle down, though. I mean,
Oh yeah.
when an ER reaches a certain level, people walk in and go, "Oh, the waiting room's this full. I'm taking my bleeding organs somewhere else." And then we still get this,
So
and
are we
real
the
nurses
first
get
to
this.
go then?
Doctors,
Doctors and nurses.
medical people.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we're gonna be. There's gonna be a sharp drop off among us. Let's put it that way.
I'd like to think that Addie knows enough about this particular type of disaster that she would know that the best thing to do is to go back to the bunker, lock herself in, wait for things to calm down, and then help.
But see, that's the thing, is that you're also dealing with the mentality of many, not all, but many healthcare workers, which is, there's a disaster, and despite the risk to my life and limb, I need to do something
Mm-hmm.
because it's what I'm trained to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be a while into a disaster of a zombie apocalypse before it would start to sink in that there isn't much you can do, and you shouldn't have been out there wandering around. You should have stayed home instead of just providing further fodder.
Right. Literally.
I look at
Exactly.
this sort of thing the same way that you guys are trying to look at the whole triage situation. It's like there's the on the patient side, you got the triage, like I can help this person, but I'm not going to be able to help this person. There should also be in a big enough disaster on the caregiver side as well, where it's I can remove myself from this situation temporarily to be able to provide a lot more care over the longer term. But if I stay here and get myself killed, I am removing from the equation something that is very, very valuable to humanity by,
Right.
doing something stupid and trying to be a hero in a bad moment.
Right, right. And extrapolating into the zombie scenario specifically, not only removing myself from the equation, but actually ending up on the negative side of the equation as one of the bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this is very important for any sort of infectious disease situation where you really, I mean, as a medical professional, you guys are trained from, the crib onward to be very aware of quarantine situations and how you're supposed to react to that.
You get
Uh,
out.
we are trained, and yet I'm surprised actually how well the H1N1 influenza epidemic
Spread.
applies here to this to this hypothetical. But having observed how my colleagues, both doctors and nurses and secretaries and everybody involved, reacted to the H1N1 epidemic, there was this wide gamut from people who were just freaking out worse than the patients were, and would show up to work, would come to work with 2 layers of clothing on so that they could leave 1 layer of clothing at work and not risk taking anything back home,
Wow.
to the people who would walk into the rooms that had, we had signs we would put on the door saying, this patient has symptoms which could be influenza, please put on. Initially, they were requiring us to wear gowns and glasses and gloves and a face mask, and it had to be the N95 face mask, it couldn't be the regular one, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And they'd walk right into the room anyways, nothing on. Like, you do see the sign, there is a reason for the sign. Sure, it's probably overkill, and eventually, CDC and WHO went, oh yeah, it turns out just hand washing and a regular old face mask is fine. Sorry, you just spent thousands of dollars on actual protective equipment you didn't need to. But yeah, despite our training, we get this mentality of, well, that's for stupid people. My intelligence will protect me from the microbes. My
Fear
brain
my
runs-
brains.
my brain turns over at such a fast rate that I generate heat which kills off the microbes before they can even get into me.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yep.
I think you have pretty good logic there.
Yeah. Think the infection away. My book is going to be coming out next month.
Wow. That's I don't know. I don't know, because I can imagine that if zombies touch the ER at our hospital, they're only going to go up. I'm on the 5th floor, so I'm not quite sure how we're going to fend them off.
I think the type of unit you're in will help quite a bit too. I mean, you're dealing with post-op cardiac patients. You're not working in the ER or something like that.
That's
so.
true. Although they have tried to recruit me to the ER a couple times.
And patients have probably tried to eat you, bite you, etc. But that's mostly due to the drugs, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that's true. No limbs and things showing. Not yet.
So he's referring to iatrogenic zombies then. The term referring to a medical condition caused by the influence of a medical intervention. So yeah, you've been attacked by iatrogenic zombies. I think you should start using that term widely.
I think I shall. So, we, both doctors and nurses, we deal with quite difficult people. And like you said, you don't even know how they function enough to get out of bed, to brush their teeth, if they brush their teeth, to come see you.
Activities of daily living,
right.
Not tech.
I just, and this goes from, I would say, teenagers all the way up to the 80s, and how I know nurses that have burned out. I'm sure doctors do too, but how do you and your colleagues deal with that? I mean, you have the blog, but what else do you do, and what else can people do, really?
Well, the grumbling side of my blog is something which is just an online extension of what I and all of my colleagues do every day. It robs a little bit of the mystique of the honorable profession of medicine, but like any profession, we have the things that drive us nuts. And when that happens, nobody understands it better than one of our colleagues.
Right.
So the challenge is just to make sure that the patients don't overhear us. We gotta remember to just wait to complain until the patient's out of earshot. That's the one that comes back and gets you in the end. But that's one of the main ways for keeping your cool. Is there is a lot of value to decompressing, to complaining about something, even if you're not going to be able to change the situation. That being said, there are more productive ways, and some people do it by also getting involved in what's the word I'm looking for? Free, doing free healthcare or charity work. That's what I'm looking for.
Sure.
Doing charity work. Doing things where putting yourself intentionally into situations where the need is much greater and your efforts are much more appreciated, despite maybe not getting any financial recompensation, or despite maybe having to sacrifice your personal time.
Sure.
And I think that does help to keep people grounded and reminding them, okay, oh yes, this is why I went into medicine. It's not because of the people I see on my 9-to-5 job.
Right. Right. Cool. So I do have some questions from your followers.
Oh,
That,
the questions.
yes, that we can go into, because one of them actually was kind of interesting. Well, there are a few that are interesting, but
All right, well, bring them on.
okay. So, how do you
Oh, and
balance?
sorry to interrupt you.
Oh,
Sorry,
go ahead.
let's footnote this then. So yeah, I'm just going to answer these straight off the top of my head. I will not be Googling anything in case people think I'm cheating.
Okay. And for those who are listening, who are fans of Dr. Cranky, I have not told him what these questions are, so they're just
Yeah,
all sorts
they're-
of fresh.
that's right. They're coming at me cold like Arctic zombies.
Yeah.
And for those of you who missed it on his blog the other day, he opened up the fire hose on us, and he asked his rabid fan base to send us any questions they had for Dr. Cranky. So we've been sorting through piles and piles of these.
Anything to divert the madness that enters my inbox day after day.
Well, I know when you open it, it's like immediately what, 10 questions, 15 questions?
Yeah, I lately now it's reaching a point where I'm the inbox, when I open it for an actual inbox, question acceptance period, I'm closing it in 20 to 25 minutes now.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Holy buckets.
there are days when there are times when I've been able to keep it open a little longer, like 45 minutes, if I am actually sitting there dedicatedly answering questions as they're coming in. Because otherwise, I mean, I've kind of set a mental goal of not having more than about 7 or 8 questions sitting there for answering later on. Otherwise, it just becomes mentally overwhelming, and I don't do it.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyhow, the questions.
Right. Questions. Okay. So, how do you balance treating family members? You mentioned reducing baby Cranky's arm,
Yes.
but do you just do it the emergency stuff, or do you provide all the basic care?
No, I don't provide all the basic care. My son, baby Cranky, has his own pediatrician. He goes to all of his doctor visits, and if he has something that needs to be, evaluated, like a fever without an obvious cause, he's definitely going to see the doctor.
Okay.
But that being said, I'm sure that I handle more than the average parent would. I'm comfortable with more than the average parent would be.
Right.
I mean, case in point, last week he fell off a step and wasn't using his arm, and Mrs. Cranky texts me at work and says, he came off the step and he's not using it. No, she didn't say it that way. I better be careful. There is a significant population in my fan base who really adore Mrs. Cranky. I better not say anything. I get them upset at me.
Well, she's a mom. She's, of course.
Yes, yeah. Well, no, she's awesome. And she's also not here in this room right now, so I'm actually being honest. And she was gonna sit here and listen to the whole interview, but she decided she wanted to wait and hear the finished product. So.
Sure.
Yeah, so she sends me this message saying, he's not using his arm, and I said, well, okay, it sounds like he might have dislocated the elbow. Why don't you bring him on in? So she drove him down and just saw him and relocated the elbow. It's that's one of the few quick fixes I can actually do without writing a prescription or doing X-rays or labs in somebody. So I'm comfortable handling a lot more, and I know that Mrs. Cranky has quite often expressed her gratitude for the fact that she knows that if I'm not freaking out, then she doesn't need to freak out, because
Right.
I've got that little extra education and experience there.
Right.
But yeah, I don't try to diagnose my family members if I can help it.
Now, are you like So a lot of nurses and doctors, we're like the worst kind of patients, and we're
Mm.
also the worst kind of family advocates. Well,
Mm.
to us, we're the best, but to the doctors, they're like, oh God, you know, we're
Yeah.
gonna be taking care of a doctor, or we're gonna be taking care of a nurse. They're just gonna be nitpicking everything. When it comes to like taking baby Cranky or Mrs. Cranky even to the doctors, like, are you all on top of it? Like in terms of asking the questions, the hard hitting questions to the doctors and such.
I don't think I am, but I think that a large reason for that is just because I am not that really high up on the totem pole when it comes to the medical expertise out there. I'm 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 a family medicine doctor who works in urgent care.
Hmm.
I'm good at what I do, but I don't follow the majority of other medical stuff that's happening out there that doesn't pertain to my field.
Sure.
I'm a subspecies. So, if Mrs. Cranky needs to have a surgery or Baby Cranky needs to have or they want to adjust what vaccines they give him, I don't follow that stuff. I'll ask enough questions to reassure myself that whoever's treating them knows what they're doing, and then hey, they're a doctor.
Yeah.
I do have the added advantage though of most of the medical people that my family comes into contact with are people that I work with in some way, that I've referred patients to, or I've seen their patients, or I can talk to them behind the scenes. So I know that I'm dealing with people who are legit and not just quacks.
Right.
So it
Right.
makes it a lot easier to just sit back and go, hey, they know what they're doing.
I'm good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you see the same sort of thing in the engineering community. Just because one of us knows how to build a circuit from scratch doesn't mean that we're not more than happy to, drop a little extra cash to pick up something that someone who knows a lot more about it than we do
Uh-huh.
put into it.
Yeah, and then there's a certain sense of relief, I will admit, especially when it's a family member besides my immediate family, and they've been asking me questions about their health for weeks and weeks and weeks, and they finally go and see their own doctor. Like, oh, okay, good. You're overhandling somebody who's actually getting paid to deal with you now.
Right.
That's a good thing.
Right. So, let's see. Okay. Biggest regret in your medical career and what got you out of that experience?
Hmm. Boy, I'm thinking I might have actually answered something like this at some point.
I'm
If
pretty
you
sure you have.
Okay, well, thank you. Um, but if I was going to go off the top of my head, which I have promised to do for this, I would say probably one of my biggest regrets in my medical career was picking a fight with, not a physical fight, but just choosing to get involved in a war of words with one of my senior residents when I was in my residency training, and living with the ramifications of having all the senior residents hate me for about 3 months.
Oh, no.
I mean, it's one of those things where, hey, you're the intern, you're stressed out, everybody's over you, nobody gives you respect, and you finally reach this breaking point. I'm going to stand up and it's going to be a Hollywood moment. No, it's not. They're all going to hate you.
Oh,
It's
no.
going to change. But the lesson I learned from that, and this is easily summarized, the lesson I learned from that is that if you're going to give somebody the middle finger, don't do it while they're watching you.
Well, did they like you afterwards, after that 3-month period?
No, the end of the 3-month period was because all the seniors graduated.
Oh,
So there
well,
might
there.
still be some residual hatred happening somewhere out there in the world, but I'm no longer in contact with those people. So
Well, so that doesn't matter anyway then.
it doesn't matter. No, that's how it resolved. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I know you've answered this pretty recently in terms of recommendations for books, but we'll just go with it anyway.
Okay.
What is your favorite book or author and why?
Well, I've given a lot of recommendations for medical books, but that question don't say medical, so I'm
True.
going to go with just in general. Yeah, if I turn around and look, let's say, hey, this will be fun. Let's turn around and look at my bookshelf behind me right now. I've got the 2 shelves full of Stephen King novels,
Ah,
and then what's up on the top? It's a mix of John Ringo and David Weber. There's a little bit of, what is that in there? Peter Hamilton. And then the next 2 shelves are all comic books, so that's too varied to figure out. Boy, I think out of if it was the, what one book would you take with you?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it would be probably something by Isaac Asimov.
Okay.
Just a nice hodgepodge collection of things, because Asimov and we get along so well. He's got such a ridiculous sense of punnery, and I mean, the man will write entire novellas just to be able to make a horrible pun at the end of them. I mean,
You got to
that's
appreciate that.
that's what I want to be when I
Right.
grow up.
Okay, so a ton of people ask you these questions. If I get a C, if I get a D, if I take time off, if I, if I suck at class, am I going to be able to be a doctor? Sorry, guys. I tried the pre-med route, and when I realized what those schools wanted from me, I was like, I'll stick with biology. Just go with biological sciences. So there's a question here. I failed a class, or I think I might be failing a class. Do you have a blanket statement for all these folks who are trying to get some form of hope from academic failure?
Well, I never failed a class, but I sure took some hard knocks during my pre-med science classes. I was not cut out to be a scientist by any sense of the means, a hard scientist at all. I have definitely failed exams, both in pre-med and medical school. I have taken time off during school, actually before medical school, during medical school as well. What else have I done that would mark me down? Oh, I was not a traditional pre-med. I actually was psychology, and then tacked on pre-med in the last couple of years of
Well, that's
college.
difficult.
Yeah. Turns out it was.
Yeah.
And which left me with no time to do any of the traditional volunteering stuff either. So I didn't do any medical volunteering or any research before applying for medical school. And have continued to shy away from all research as much as possible ever since then. What other strikes are against me? I showed up to my first interview not wearing a suit. Turns out that'll get you an extra interview just for them to tell you that they think you're weird.
That's awesome.
Yeah. What I'm trying to say is that it's hard to get into medical school. It's hard to do medical school. It's hard to be and become a doctor. But it's pretty hard to be totally prevented from doing it too. I mean, there's definitely people who are not going to get in even though they've got great scores. There's people who are going to get in who have awful scores.
Right.
There is no one factor that determines who's going to get into medical school.
Yeah.
And as I have said quite a few times to people, if it really is a matter of you're striking out on multiple factors, multiple categories of what's going to qualify you for medical school, well, then maybe that's a sign that medical school is not a calling for you.
Yep.
I don't want to be a downer. I don't want to, say, well, what are you doing chasing your dreams, kid? But there is a fine line between chasing your dreams and ignoring reality.
Right. And I think like people who want to go into medicine should always consider NP, PA, even nursing. I mean,
Absolutely. And the thing is too, though, is that often that is often the response that comes up is, well, if you didn't make it to medical school, why don't you consider X, Y, or Z? But by answering in that way, it gives the impression that
it's less
those are somehow less worthy, less difficult to assume, less difficult to achieve, less honorable.
Sure.
And that is by no means the case.
Yep.
I've said over and over, man, if I even knew that the concept of being a PA existed before I got into medicine, hell yeah, I'd be PA cranky. Absolutely, because my personality and my goals for my life are much more in fitting with what PAs do.
Right.
Sure. But here I am, and looking back, well, now I wouldn't change it. Here I am. But there is no shame in failing a class, or not getting an interview, or dropping out of medical school. You are who you are. You're going to be who you're going to be. if what you've done has not qualified you to be excellent at being a doctor, then please don't be a doctor.
I think this advice pretty much applies to any highly knowledgeable field that you want to get into. There's going to be bumps on the road to getting into any of these kinds of things, be it medicine or anything else. When you're dealing with any sort of situation where you really, really, really need to know your stuff, it's going to be a process.
Let's see. And whenever you get your next time slot on Oprah, just, let us know. Let's see. Are there any... Okay, so Dr. Cranquis is based on House from the show, which is awesome because he's awesome. And
this is somebody writing that in a question?
That's my side commentary.
Yeah. I stick Hugh Laurie's face on the website, and so far he hasn't written me a cease and desist letter. So
Nope, because you're an actual doctor and he's not. So
yeah, so suck it, Hugh.
So are there any TV doctors that seem fake or are constantly wrong? Like Grey's Anatomy.
That's a hard question for me to answer, mainly because I just don't watch much TV. And when I do, I don't tend to watch much medical TV besides House.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, even in House, there's things that you're like, okay, really. I mean, come on, everybody. I think any person with a thinking head on their shoulders thinks it's pretty weird that everybody who works on House's team does everything in that patient's medical care.
Right.
I mean, that's
because the nurses don't do it all.
No, they do their own labs, they do their own surgeries, they do their own scans, and I'm thinking,
amazing.
To myself, out there's a unionized group of radiologists going, what the? That is our CT machine.
There's no way we'd let those peons touch it.
Oh, absolutely not, man. They'd screw everything up. So yeah, TV doctors are written by non-medical professionals with, almost always some kind of medical consultant involved. But things have to be spiced up. For as much fun as it is to write stories about what I do in everyday life,
right?
Wouldn't be able to keep a TV series running off of my life. You got to add in a little bit of jazz and pizzazz and change things around that might not really be how a doctor would do it, but wouldn't it be cool?
And a little extra soap opera drama, of course. Just
soap opera,
spice things
zombie
up.
Invasion. That would keep things lively.
That would be kind of cool if you
medical
looked at a
drama
hospital.
About zombie apocalypse. Hey,
we're
onto something there.
Hey, that is a good idea.
There is an idea there. I'd actually like to see, taking the idea you were mentioning before, Addie, about the zombies who actually behave quite human.
Yeah.
And drag that out over the first season, where the doctors are figuring out something's wrong and they can't figure out exactly what. Yeah. But it turns out that they've all been zombies all along.
Just vegetarians.
The vegan zombies of Southern California.
That would be great. Little hippie loving zombies.
Greens.
So we are like almost, we're at like the end of our interview essentially, and so I always have a few questions that I'd like to ask.
This is so much fun.
Hasn't it been? So, what's your plan for when the zombie apocalypse hits?
Definitely, I've answered that on the blog.
Yep.
But that's Dr. Cranquis' plan. I don't actually have a plan in real life. I'm too busy.
Too busy to worry about the zombie apocalypse. Yeah, guys, stop eating me. I've got patients to see.
Guys, come on. No, the way I approach medicine is, what's the chances of X, Y, or Z being the diagnosis? What's the chances that a zombie apocalypse is actually going to happen in real life? Boy,
100%.
It's not high up on my list of things to worry about.
The CDC's worried about it. Mayo Clinic's worried about viral, quote unquote, viral
I
terrorism.
think the CDC is using it as a metaphor, the same way that we do.
Hey, it comes from the government.
But Dr. Cranquis has a plan. Dr. Cranky absolutely has a plan, and he also has a lot more money to finance that plan than
Ah,
I do.
yes, of course.
So yeah, but you know what? The actual outline of that plan will remain on the blog, and finding it will be left as an exercise to the listener.
Excellent. All right, guys. You guys can do the search then. And let's see, 3 tools that you would take to an apocalypse bunker, zombie apocalypse bunker.
Okay, so tools. So I guess we'll just go ahead and leave weaponry aside then.
Sure.
I would grab a saw.
Okay.
That's got a lot of uses, medical and non. Even musical, if you know what you're doing.
Oh my, yeah.
And let's see, 3 tools. See, now they're asking somebody who is so clueless about anything mechanical.
Well, even diagnostic tools.
Diagnostic
That would
tools.
work too.
You're the first MD to answer this one, so
Yeah. Hey, can we fit an entire MRI in the bunker?
We sure can.
Okay, because that actually has defensive capabilities as well.
Does it?
Absolutely. Have you ever seen? There's plenty of videos actually. Go YouTube it, but there's videos of people putting metallic things into an MRI.
Oh dear.
Or in the metallic. Now you can actually turn that property around, and I'm sure you engineers would be able to figure this out in a heartbeat.
Yeah, you could basically create a rail gun, right?
Exactly. They've done that. They'll use oxygen tanks because this is actually happening in real life.
That's terrible.
Oh,
Absolutely, man. You just got to line it up just right. Holy cow.
oh my gosh.
So for those of you who don't know, an MRI machine is basically a very, very large, very powerful electromagnet. So you put an oxygen tank in the middle of that thing, turn it on, and send it going in the right direction, and it's gonna,
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely. No, there's all sorts of stuff we could fire out of that thing, man.
We'll have to give you the coordinates to our bunker. Actually, we might even get 2 MRIs if you think about it, because last week we talked to a neuroscientist who developed a likely MRI scan for a zombie. So for a zombie brain, and so he would probably be able to recognize whether someone was a zombie or not.
Right.
And if they did, then your railgun MRI machine
just throw a
could
bunch
kill
of loose change in the MRI with them once the test, shows positive.
Everybody walks around with a pocket full of paper clips ready to go.
Oh my god. That's great. So we've got saw.
A saw, an MRI, and a can opener, because I hate using knives to open cans.
Yeah. I hope you haven't done it before, but yeah.
No, but have you heard the piece of trivia that the can opener was invented after the can, the tin can?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I think
silly.
I want to say it was something like 15 years after the
What?
can good was invented that the can opener was invented. Yeah.
The original cans had the keys, right?
Well, I think either that or people were just bashing them on rocks. Going, this is the stupidest method of packaging I've ever seen.
Smash can.
That is great. That is great. So yeah, I mean, I guess that works. That
Okay,
works.
good.
I will take it. Excellent.
And I've got a recorded invite to the bunker. So
Yes, it's
that's
true.
my zombie plan right there.
Awesome.
Let the
Alright.
professionals deal with it, right?
That's right. And then just get invited on the backside.
All right.
Cool.
So thank you, Dr. Cranky, for joining us this week. It was really fun.
Yep. And I know that you had, so this is in and of itself a present to your followers. Was there anything else you wanted to present to your followers or to any of our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, really more along the zombie line.
Mm-hmm.
I've been slowly writing a separate blog that I don't think has been really connected to me yet on Tumblr, which the idea for it all came in one kind of fever dream in the middle of the night one night. I think baby Cranky was sick and I was up really late rocking him to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And the lyrics to a number of different Sound of Music songs were running through my head. And suddenly it clicked and I thought, the sound of zombies, why hasn't anybody done this yet? And I'm actually quite a musical person and started writing lyrics, new
Ah,
lyrics, zombie-themed lyrics for some of the famous songs from the Sound of Music.
that's
Uh,
awesome.
And this was actually even before I had started the blog, the Cranky blog.
Oh, okay.
I had just been writing these on a Word document, and then later on I thought, this would be fun to write, but there's no way this is going on the Cranky blog because and this, yeah.
Plus
So
10,000 awesome points.
right, yay me. So I've been writing this slowly on the side and waiting to reveal it. I suppose it's finally. I started realizing as I was gaining followers, I was like, you know what? This would just be a fun, quirky kind of thing for my followers to learn about me and to be able to read. So I'm still writing. I've got 3 fully on there, and I'm actually working on the 4th one. But what I thought, and I don't know if this is just getting too close to the end of your interview to fit it in, but I would love to actually sing one of these zombie-themed Sound of Music songs for you.
Go for it.
All right. This is from Sound of Music, the Rodgers and Hammerstein musical starring Julie Andrews, and the particular song is Maria, which is being sung in the movie and Broadway musical by the nuns discussing Maria, who is, the troublesome nun played by Julie Andrews. I am realizing as I'm explaining this that I think there's probably 3 people in the world, and they all live in Fiji, who don't actually know the plot to Sound of Music. So that was a worthless introduction. But so this is Maria, the zombie version, being sung by a couple of zombies. How do you catch a human named Maria? How do you snag her leg and pin her down? How do you catch a human named Maria? She tripped on the tree root but didn't fall down on the ground. Many of us would really like to eat her. Many of us would gnaw upon her hand. But how do you make her stay? She's trying to get away. How can we run when our legs can barely stand? Oh, how do you catch a human named Maria? How will we feast if she gets off our land? When we used to still be nuns, playing chase was so much fun, and we always could outrun this tiny lamb. Now I'm tangled in my habit, and she's flighty as a rabbit. She's so yummy, I just hope she tastes like ham. Cut her off, she's heading west. I am shuffling like the rest. I can see her fingernails reflect the moon. She can't go on very far. Look, she still has her guitar. That's no guitar, that's a shotgun crack kaboom. Song ends here due to sudden zombie homicide.
Yay! We might have to produce your
this is
songs.
pretty funny because, we produce songs all the time, and many times they're about zombies. And a previous guest that is a professional author of popular zombie novels also has an album of zombie music. And now we have AMD singing zombie musicals. Oh, this show has taken a turn.
Yeah, I am even more glad than ever that I'm doing all this under a pseudonym.
We might just have to have talks after the show finishes about producing.
Do that. We can do that. Hey, I've always wanted to break into the spotlight. I just never realized it would be in the zombie realm of the musical world.
Zombie musicals.
Well, thanks
that's a
for
new one.
sharing well,
Awesome.
That thing.
yeah,
Thing
that.
I did. Yeah.
As for
If Julie Andrews was dead, she'd be turning over in her grave and then coming to life.
And then coming back to life.
That's right.
Correct.
all right, so is there anything that you wanted to plug before we closed up here?
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I should mention then the actual link to that blog is the Sound of Zombies what is it? The Sound of Zombies.tumblr.com, I believe.
Yep.
Gotta love Tumblr. It's
Yep.
full of this kind of fun nonsense.
Yeah, sure is. Man, I'm surprised at how much fun this thing is. I wish I'd stumbled on it. I wish it had been around when I was in medical school. I am so envious of all the
Yeah.
medical blogs, the med student blogs that are writing on there.
Yeah.
That would have been such a great outlet.
Yeah.
So big props to those bloggers out there. You know who you are, who I follow, and who are doing such a great job.
Yeah.
But otherwise, no, I ain't got nothing to plug, man. You know, my blog, it's just a fun thing I do. You know, people read it, and that's hilarious to me, and I'm glad that they find some hilarity themselves. So, cranky.tumblr.com. Come along and have some fun.
Yep. And Cranquis is spelled Cranquis.
Pronounced like the French marquis, of course.
Yes. And there will, of course, be links in the show description. For our Tumblr, it's tymkrs.tumblr.com. And on that, Addie posts her daily adventures in learning electronics and programming and all the sort of things that nurses don't usually do, but she does anyway just because she's awesome.
Thank you.
For this show, you can find it every Thursday on ZombieTech.tv.
And until next week.
That's it for us.
Bye.
Bye.
Adios.